We have already talked about the quality and deliverables, and now we are talking about the risk. As we already understand the mechanism of the risk management, now we are going to monitor and control the risk because we are uh, doing monitoring and control here. As far as agile projects are concerned, you understand that the risk management is built into the iteration. We do risk management on iteration to iteration basis, though we can handle more uncertainty and higher levels of risk in agile projects, but it becomes simpler to deal with them because at any one point in time, we are dealing with only one iteration. And no matter how many risks are there in that one iteration, still we can easily handle it. So rather than planning the whole thing, we have resorted to developing the increments. Just a moment. So we have resorted to developing the increments. So adaptive development approaches incorporate risk management in iterative and incremental practices. Whereas in predictive, we do as much predictive risk management uh, as early as possible because the planning is done, all the planning is done in the beginning, in the planning process group. And therefore, we develop a comprehensive risk management plan trying to identify as many risks from the whole project as possible. And then we are managing those risks. We are monitoring and controlling those risks. If they happen, what actions do we have to take? So that was the difference between the two extremes, the agile and the predictive, and how we monitor and control them. While the guidelines for monitoring risks in a predictive environment would be that you have to enable decision making based on current information about overall risk exposure and individual risk. You remember we did the quantitative risk analysis, which told us how much is the overall risk exposure of the whole project, how risky is the project overall. Moreover, we also uh, did the quantitative risk analysis for the purpose of finding the most riskiest portions of the project life. Is it that time that many of the concurrent risks are likely to occur? So we keep an eye on all the risks and also at the same time, we try to keep identifying any new risks which may be identified. So we continuously monitor the status, probability, and impact of all the risks we have been identified. We identify new risks all the time. We reassess those current risks as if the status of a risk has changed, we should record it and we should update our risk management plan. And those risks which did not occur, they are closed out because they are no more an issue. They are no more a problem for us. So we will close out those risks. For example, yesterday we were constructing something where rain could have bothered us, but it did not rain. That means that risk did not occur, and ultimately we have to close it out. We perform this monitoring process on regular basis throughout the project. While the things are happening, they are being executed. We are always keeping a close eye on the status of the risks. And by doing that, we are able to continuously improve our risk effectiveness because we are having a very keen eye on the monitoring. So we learn from our experience and we make our risk management process more effective. So in the monitoring stage, you must ask some questions from yourself. For example, are the project assumptions still valid? Remember, I did tell you that project assumptions, wherever we have taken during the planning, they are the biggest candidates to become risk at any point in time. Therefore, it is our responsibility during monitoring to keep asking this question if any project assumption has been converted into a fact or has proven wrong. If any assumption has proven wrong, we must be warned immediately that this might become a risk. Second question, have risks changed or been retired? Like I said, if we keep reassessing the risks, current risks, if their status changes, we will report that. And if a risk did not occur, it must be outdated. So we must close them down. Third question, are risk management policies and procedures being followed? That is very important. Throughout a predictive project, we must ensure that we strictly abide by the guidelines, policies, and procedures about risk management, which have been provided to us by the project governance, and we have compiled them into the risk management plan. So, risk management plan we must consult consistently and continuously. Fourth question, have contingency reserves been modified? You see, risks did not happen as we planned, and therefore, maybe there were some unknown risks which could not have been identified and they have caused damage. So, did we amend our contingency reserves accordingly? That is a big question. Lastly, do we need a risk audit? Although it is not a necessity, because we assume that for risk management purposes, risk manager and his team are sufficient to handle the working of the risks. But in case you are dealing with a very complex project, maybe an external team might visit you to do your risk audit, whether you are following the correct processes for risk management or not. So if you think that is necessary, you may ask for that. You may invite a risk audit team to keep checking you periodically on your risk management activities. So this is as far as the predictive project is concerned. This is how we monitor risk in predictive projects. Then we, as I said, we keep an eye on our reserves. You remember we have got contingencies and we have got management reserves. Contingency reserves were at the work package level as well as at the activity level, whereas the management reserves were over and above the total budget at completion. So we can use these reserves for the purposes of spending money on risks. This review of the reserves should happen continuously throughout the project, as if we always know the status of how many risks were there, how many have occurred, how much of reserves are we left with. Compares amount remaining to determine if adequate. If the remaining amount is not adequate to complete the project, then we may inform the higher management as if we may require the management reserves at some stage. And whatever the analysis of reserves is, we must communicate that through a burn down chart, especially how many risks were there. That is the full candle, and we could have, as those risks are eliminated or they are addressed and their time has passed, we keep moving down. So the number of risks keep reducing over the life of the project until the end, last day of the project, we are having no risks at all. But remember, till the very last moment, there is a possibility a new risk could be identified. But as soon as the project is closed down, this story stops there. You remember we talked about recording all the risks which we identify into a risk register. But this risk register is a live document. Although during the planning we did a very comprehensive exercise of recording all the possible risks in the risk register, but we must keep updating it because we know and we understand that the identification of risk is a continuous process, and even till the last moment of project, we may be identifying risks, we may be assessing them, analyzing them, creating the response strategies, and all that. So you should keep your risk register updated with any new or existing risks. Like I said, current status of existing risk, and if there is a new risk, that must be added to the risk register. And that way, we will also be updating on our current knowledge and situation. So that is how risk register is to be kept alive. In an agile project, as I have already explained, the risk management is slightly different. It is done on iteration basis. Moreover, there is another difference with in agile. We don't really call it a risk register in agile. Rather, the name in agile, which is commonly used, is either a risk list or a risk log, which is very similar to risk register, but it is, I mean, uh, sh- shorter in detail. It could be indicative kind of a list. And I have shown you the sample for both of these things. I have shown you a diagram, a chart which shows the risk register sample, and I also have shown you a sample of a risk list. Okay, let us move on to the next topic, and that are compliances. Manage compliances as the highest priority. Remember, I did say that quality is also a compliance because we are following the quality policy of the organization or maybe some regulation by the government which is enforced on whatever we are doing. Therefore, if we are doing projects, we have to comply with those policies. Now, the quality could be one of those policies, but there could be other policies as well which we must comply, because if we don't comply those rules and regulations or policies, then we are at a risk that they will close down our project on non-compliance basis. Therefore, compliance is really very important and it should be given highest of priority as compared to the other project objectives like scope, time, and cost. They are important from the project point of view, but compliance is important from the organizational point of view. Therefore, I should give it a higher priority. And if there are any risks to the compliance, we should deal with them with, with more attention because we can't afford a non-compliance. And even if there is to be a non-compliance, we must assess how much is going to be the impact of the non-compliance on the project. Can the project be shut down due to this non-compliance? Or we will bear some kind of a fine or loss, right? So depending on what kind of effect the compliance could cause, a non-compliance could cause on the project, we can devise our strategy how to deal with it. So test and validate your deliverables continuously and at project and phase end, because compliance is related with the ultimate acceptance of the deliverable. The acceptance criteria can only be accomplished after the compliance has been completed. Otherwise, whole of our user acceptance, especially in case of a predictive project which has just one user acceptance for the whole project, so that is greatly dependent on compliance requirements to be met. But in Agile, I did tell you that every user story does have a user acceptance criteria, and when we are uh, to deliver something to the customer as per their desire, whether it is at the end of the release, at the end of a project, or anywhere in the middle of the project, whatever we are handing them over, although we have the user acceptance already with us, those items must be complied for quality and other compliance requirements. Remediate your compliance issues to avoid any negative impact on your timelines, cost runs, or increased risk, because compliance can cause all of these issues. Benefits of compliance sign off, meaning at the end of the project, you sign off that all the compliances have been completed. The benefit of this is that you get an early warning of any potential threat or threat to the compliance. Anything which could go wrong with the compliance, you will get an indication through this. And you will gain the ability to capture variances and take action accordingly. Then we did talk about in the beginning about the business value, and we said that whatever initiatives we take in our organization, we do our operations, we conduct projects, programs, our portfolios, everything we do in the organization must actually serve to build value for the organization, increase value, business value. That means whatever was the current worth of our business, that should increase with every action we take in the organization. And that is true for the projects as well. When we undertake a project, that must also give some value to the organization, add some value to the organization. So this becomes our responsibility in monitoring and control, that we examine the status of business value, whether it has been increased due to our working or not. If it is not, then we have to rethink it. Tailor your work processes, approaches, and tools along with the leadership skills to keep examining and improving your value delivery. Consistent value must be delivered, and that you see and understand that in Agile we are delivering consistent, iterative delivery. So this does contribute to the business value, definitely. But even if you are doing a predictive project, you have to keep an eye on that. The question is, how often and how well does your project team really focus efforts on examining the business value of the project? Do you really keep that at the top of your mind when you are working on a project?
Not all the time. Probably at the beginning, and then whenever something changes.
Very nice, because that is the normal problem. We do not keep the business value at the top of our mind, and therefore our attention is diverted to minor issues, right? If we have got a shared understanding right from the beginning, everyone in the organization and everyone in the project team does understand that we have to work in an optimized manner, and we must add some value to the organization, and we must fulfill the vision, mission, and strategy of the organization. We must be aligned with them. This is something which has to be ensured throughout the life of the project. That can, actually save us from big disasters. And by disaster, I mean misalignment from the project objectives. Some questions for you. While you are working on a SWOT analysis for a risk response, our team member asks you to show them how it is done. Naturally, it is coaching. Which type of coaching is this?
Informal coaching.
Very nice, because this team member is asking us for a personal guidance. So this is a informal. Our team member asked you if they could lead an estimating meeting. Which skill will you be coaching the team member?
Facilitating a meeting. Facilitating a meeting.
Right. Probably we did these questions earlier as well.
I think
Okay.
these are repeat of the previous questions.
Okay, let's see if we have done this one. A product owner is unsure about how to participate in an iteration review session. What should the project manager do?
Coach the product owner on how to contribute to the meeting.
Very nice. And I think with this we did or not. Okay, we did this one also.
We did this.
So what was the
So,
answer?
project manager and interpersonal skills.
Very right. Okay. How can this geographically dispersed virtual team be engaged and motivated to innovate, be productive, and stay within the schedule? Which two ways can they do this?
Um, Hold daily stand up and allow this team to self organize.
Very nice. Very nice. How can the team ensure that their processes are optimal and they can deliver the final prototype on time? We did that also.
Um, Conduct retrospectives.
Very right. Very right. The subject matter expert wants to pilot a camera drone to send real-time close-ups of a building to the rest of the team to troubleshoot. Only 1 month remains in the timeline. How should the team respond first?
C. Figure out what resources, budget, and time are needed.
Yes, because this is a change request, a valid change request, and we will treat it as such. So we will look what is the impact of this change request is going to be on resources, budget, time, etc. The decision whether to approve this change request or not is with the project board. So as a project team, we have no right to uh, deny a request for change. Okay, probably this is the last topic. Let's see. Uh, no, there is another topic after this. Project issues and impediment. Now, issues are something very important. Issues and impediments. In predictive environment, we studied that any risk which, when it occurs, it ceases to be a risk after that, it becomes an issue. Although there is a contingency, separate contingency for risks and a separate contingency for issues. But because the uncertainty is no more when a risk has occurred, therefore, we stop calling it a risk and we start calling it an issue. So we try to resolve that issue. We put in effort to resolve that issue, and the funding from which it is supported is called contingency plan fund. Contingency planning. That is for issues. And what is for the risks when they are still the risks? That is called contingency reserves. Contingency reserves could be associated with the activities, or they could be associated with the work packages. So these are contingency reserves which are to deal with the risk. And if a risk becomes an issue, then we have got alternate plan which we could follow. Anyways, if you remember that, and moreover, in Agile, you remember that the team lead is responsible to facilitate the team all the time as a servant leader, and the team lead, is responsible for dealing with all the issues and impediments. So if team faces some obstacles in their way, they inform the team lead, and team lead makes sure that those problems are eradicated, right? This is how we deal with the issues and impediments in our agile project. So naturally, we have what could be the obstacles? They could be obstacles, they should be removed. They could be impediments which are hindering us. There could be blockers which are not letting us pass through. Whatever names you want to use for it. But these are issues, impediments, obstacles, and blockers. And who is responsible to deal with them? The team lead, right? And we don't want our project team to be bothered with this. I'm especially talking from the agile perspective. We don't want our team members who are actually working on serious job, we don't want them to be bothered by these blockers, impediments, etc. So whatever they expect a blocker or an impediment, they will let the project manager or project team lead know that, and this person, being a servant leader, would make sure that those impediments and blockers are removed from the root of the project agile team. So whenever you face an issue or an impediment, the only option open to you is to resolve it, to solve it. As far as issues are concerned, we already understand these are conditions or situations that may have an impact on the project objective. But also, we have read already that issues are when a risk can occur. This is also another definition for an issue. When a risk occurs, it ceases to be a risk, it becomes an issue. Impediments are like blockers, hurdles, or things like that. An obstacle that prevents a team from achieving its objective is also known as a blocker. In a predictive project, the predictive teams use the term issue log, where all the issues are recorded. In Agile, we have a different name for that, just like risk register. Here we have got a different name for issue log, which is called an impediment log. And especially in Agile, the responsibility of dealing with the impediment log is of the team lead, who is a servant leader. And this term is specifically related to the Agile or Scrum projects. We already understand that risks, when they occur, they become issues. Dealing with the risk is another story. Dealing with issues is another story. The strategy is different. When we are dealing with a risk, we are focused on the future, anything which is likely to occur. Whereas issue is something which has occurred. Therefore, we are focused on the present. Risks could be positive as well as negative, but only negative risks turn out to be issues. Positive risks do not become issues, so they are not part of issue management. My question is, what if a positive risk occurs? As we understand from this definition, they cannot become issues. Then what do they become? What does a positive
Opportunity?
risk becomes?
Opportunity?
It is already an opportunity, right? We can't call it an opportunity. Opportunity is something which is likely to occur. That is a
Ah,
positive risk.
okay, okay. Um, Actually, I don't know. Not thought about
That will
positive.
turn out to be a benefit.
Okay.
And
Positive.
because benefit is good for us, this is not a problem. So we don't deal with the benefits in issue management. Anyways, what do we do? In risk, we are documenting the risk in a risk register, or if it is agile, it is a risk list. Issues, we document them in a predictive project as issue log, but in agile, we call it impediment impediment log. How do we respond to risks? The response is called the risk response. What does the response of a issue looks like? That is called a workaround or an alternate plan and things like that. I hope this matter is understood and closed.
Just to clarify, the impediment list in Agile, it's the same as the risk list,
It is
correct?
same as the issue log.
Issue log.
We call it issue log in predictive projects. We call it impediment log in agile.
Um, issue log, impediment log. Okay. And then the risk register in predictive, and then risk list in Agile. Correct. Risk list in Agile, risk register in predictive.
Yes,
Okay, got it. Thank you.
yes, exactly. Okay, what other issues could be there in a project? Naturally, these issues are uh, either going to be arising just like because they are issues are the result of the risks. So naturally, there is a relation with the issue to the risk because the risk was the reason why issue has arisen. So the risk could give rise to issues. Then you have got three project objectives: scope, time, and cost. Scope change control, cost control, and schedule control can also give rise to issues. Uh, Quality could also have some issues of its own. Communication could have issues. Procurements could have issues. And when we are doing the project variance analysis during the monitoring and control, that can also point to certain issues. This I am talking from a predictive point of view. In Agile, no matter from where the issue is coming, all the issues are to be forwarded to the team lead. And team lead, as a servant leader, is responsible to get those issues resolved. The team does not get involved in issue management. That is not their subject at all. They just let the team lead know, and he deals with the issues all by himself. Uh, Issue resolution could be traced or tracked in your issue log. The issue log you created may also represent the status of that issue. For example, let us start from the response. We already know what is the issue. So, did we determine the response for that? For example, the first is truck strike. We have yet not determined a response. So it is to be determined. Glazing service down, the response we are working on it. We yet not do not have a response to that. Josie Bino is also working is dissatisfied. That is an issue, and that we are working on it. But if you have found a response, you have created a response, you can write that response here. Moreover, we allocate as soon as we identify a risk, we allocate a due date to that. Generally speaking, the day a risk has arisen, a issue has arisen, from that day onwards, we fix 15 days to resolve that issue. So due date is 15 days after the issue has been identified. So if the issue was raised on 15th of January, 1st of February would be the date would be the due date for this issue. Who is responsible for this? The risk owner. There must be a risk owner for every issue. What is the status of the issue right now? Is it open? It is closed? It has been pended? Whatever you can write in the status, and in comments, you can write down your comments about this issue. So this is how the issue resolution can be monitored through the issue log, or you call it issue register, whatever you want to call it. In Agile, how do you deal with impediments? Naturally, I have already told you this is kind of a problem discovery kind of problem, like you do the Ishikawa analysis. Naturally, the team lead has to do it because he's responsible for removing all the issues. So he analyzes and discovers the problem, solves it. The Scrum Master is responsible for finding a resolution with the concerned parties. And the concerned parties are not the team members. They are outside parties like stakeholders, like other people, other project teams and things like that. So he has to coordinate with all of them as if his agile project issues can be addressed. It often involves dealing with conflict somewhere in the organization. So team lead should be very good at dealing with conflicts. And resolution of an issue can help the organization grow in agility. So this is a characteristic of agility, that you can solve your problems quickly. You can resolve your conflicts easily. So for removing impediments, you have to keep an eye on the impediments, track them, prioritize them in the product backlog, use a daily stand-up meeting to look at the status of how well we so far addressed the impediment, and serve as a servant leader. And you are responsible as the team lead to do all this. Team members are not to be bothered with impediments. They will bother you for impediment, and you will have to resolve impediment for them. Question: which of the following is the best example of a blocker?
Clearance from another team to use content for the demo won't be ready within the current iteration. Letter C.
C. Very nice. You are very right. Which conflict management approach is best suited for a situation where both parties refuse to give in on their position? They are not compromising. They are not agreeing with each other.
Um, Compromise or reconcile, A?
Compromise will be done if they agree on something. They are not agreeing on anything.
Okay. Force or direct?
Anyways, yes, you are right. If we are talking about the best suited situation, that would be compromise and reconcile. You are right. But
Okay.
right now, in the status they are kind of not collaborating, right? So if they will collaborate, they will able to compromise. That is the best solution. Which is true about conflict in projects?
Conflict is inevitable, C.
Very good. Conflict is inevitable. That will happen, and you will have to resolve it. The product owner is unavailable to decide about a product feature. What is this considered?
Impediment.
Very right. So any problem which is coming your way is impediment. So how, as a team lead, how are you going to solve it? You are going to coordinate with the product owner, ensure his availability, and get him in touch with the team. The matter resolved. Anyways, we are done with this portion, and the last portion is about the project change. Project change is especially necessary from the predictive point of view, where the change request, a very strict procedure of change request is available. In Agile, we don't have a problem because there is no mechanism of change request at all. We don't control the changes. Rather, we negotiate the changes with the customer. So the product owner and customer are stakeholders, sit together, and they can decide the fate of the project. They can change the requirements. They can introduce new requirements. So they are fully capable and they are fully authorized to make any changes to the project, right? They don't need to go to the project board for that. But in a predictive project, we have to have a chain of command. We have to have a very strict procedure for the approval of the changes. A proper change request has to be moved. So, what are causes of project changes? There could be many causes. Maybe the estimates you have made earlier, they were not accurate, and now you need to correct them. Maybe when you planned the project, the regulations were different. Now new regulations had come up, and in light of the new regulations, you have to accommodate certain changes in the project. You might have missed certain requirements, although you were supposed to have done it, but you have missed them out, and now you have to add them or accommodate them into the plan. It can only be done through a change request. Or maybe if the specification changes, remember I'm not talking about the agile project, but if in a predictive project, customer wants to change anything in the specification, that must pass through a proper change control procedure. You have to move a change request to add a new requirement. It is not just mutually decided by the team and the stakeholder. No, not like that. Specification changes, change request has to be moved in a predictive project. So you see, the predictive project management, change management is more restrictive in nature. That is not comfortable, that not easy, that is a very forbidding kind of a procedure, and it is kind of restrictive in nature. In Agile, we don't have this restriction. We are open to change. Customer is allowed anytime to change anything in the project, and we can talk with him there and then and make changes to our plans. Now, as far as the change is concerned, we must refer to the 12 principles of project management. I don't remember, I've shown them to you earlier, but they are part of the latest edition. These are the 12 principles of project management. I'm not going to go into the detail of all of them, but I just want to mention the last principle, which says enable change to achieve the envisioned future goal. So you see, change is such an important subject, no matter whether you're dealing with a predictive project or an agile project, change is such an important subject that has been specifically mentioned in the 12 principles of project management. That was the point I wanted to make here. Otherwise, if you want to learn about these 12 principles, you can read this slide, you can look at it into the project management body of knowledge. I think this is a good knowledge. You must understand what are the principles of project management. Monitor the external business environment, because the external business environment may affect your project and changes might be brought into your project due to that. Now, when did you consider the business environment for the first time? When the business case was being created by the business analyst, he did a lot many analysis like PESLE analysis, TCOP analysis, or BUCA analysis. We have studied them all. But that was at the level when we were doing the business case or feasibility or wherever we are trying to make a comparison and trying to take a decision, we may resort to these tools, but most likely, because these tools are very strategic in nature, most likely it would be in business case. But having said that, if the external environment of the business has changed, we may have to re-evaluate our feasibility study. Naturally, we are not going to be involving the business analyst, but because the business case is now the property of project manager until the project ends, therefore, project manager is responsible for re-evaluating the external business environment and updating the business case. And if there is any change in the business case, this matter has to be reported to the project board through a change request. So therefore, we can follow the proper change control mechanism, and we can even change the change according to the business environment. Okay. Now, how does we manage the change in a predictive project? We have a process in monitoring and control which belongs to the integration knowledge area. Rather, we have two processes, but the one which deals with the change control is called perform integrated change control. All the change requests which are coming in from the stakeholder, from within our team, from the analysis, wherever these change requests are coming, they all will be accumulated in the integrated change control process, right? And on periodical basis, the project board will come. They will conduct a meeting, which is called the change control board. Their meeting is conducted on periodic basis, like every 2 weeks or every month. And all the change requests so far being held by the integrated change control will be presented in front of the change control board, and they will either accept them or reject them. If they accept them, then the requisite changes are to be made in the respective plans, and whole of the project management plan may get amended as a result of an approval of change request. In Agile, we don't have any mechanism for change control, not at all. Change is free, change is open, and change can be decided all the time between the product owner and the customer. Therefore, how do we deal with change in our Agile project? That is, product owner is the person who is a decision maker, who negotiates with the customer. They can even change the terms of the contract, right? They are so powerful. We don't need a project board for approving any changes. We can do it ourselves. Everyone participates in backlog refinement. That means, although the backlog, the product backlog, is also the responsibility of product owner, but whole team helps him out in refining the backlog, prioritizing the user stories in the backlog, and doing things like that. Because product owner alone cannot handle such a volume of work. So the project team will come to their rescue whenever they're free from their iteration. So after every iteration, after completing every iteration, the project team will have to go back to the product backlog to pick up new tasks for the next iteration. But because these in the product backlog, there might have been a couple of new requirements which were received during we were doing our first iteration. Therefore, those have to be properly adjusted, prioritized, rephrased, and once that is done, and team is going to help with that. Once that is done, they can move on to their second iteration. And after every iteration, they come to help product owner in refining, grooming, and prioritizing the product backlog. This is going to happen every time after every iteration. This is how we manage the change in agile projects. This is the process of change management, specifically from the predictive point of view, where there is a strict mechanism, there is a change request form. Anyone who initiates the change must fill in the change request form. These change requests will be received and logged by the integrated change control. Then they will pass through a filter whether they are valid change requests or they are not valid. If they are not valid, you could straight away reject them and send them back a rejection notice. If it makes some sense, they are accepted, and then you start comparing with the deliverable affected. You try to find out which project objective, scope, time, or cost is going to be affected by that, which deliverable is affected by that. If there is nothing which is to be affected, again you send out a rejection notice, because this is not the level of change as far as the project board is concerned. If anything is not affecting the project objectives or the deliverable, that is not to be considered a change request, because that is not the level of project board to decide. That means such change requests are to be handled internally by the project manager. We don't need to take them to the project board. Anyways, if the deliverable is affected, we will have the impact statement prepared. What is the impact of this change on our project objectives? We may have different levels defined for that if the matter, though it is affecting the deliverable and the objectives, but matter involves less money. So what you can do is you can define a funding limit and say all the matters smaller than this much funding, say $100,000, any decisions under the $100,000 could be made directly by the project manager without consulting the product backlog. Then there is a moderate impact things. They are to be addressed by the project manager and reviewed by the stakeholders. Again, project board is not involved. But if it exceeds a specific escalation level, then it is a major impact, and not only the project manager and sponsor, but the stakeholders also review it, meaning the whole project board sits down to make the decision. So we have divided according to the level of impact. We have divided the responsibilities. Smaller impact is handled by the project manager alone. Medium impact is handled by the project manager along with the stakeholders, and major impact would be handled by the project board. Now, after this process, if the change is authorized, that means we have to make necessary amendments in our project management plans, our baselines. So this is an indication, because the change has been approved, you are allowed to make changes to your baselines, right? And if it is not approved, it again the rejection notice is sent backwards. Just this workflow I have shown you just to show how the things happen in a predictive project as far as the change request is concerned. Are you comfortable with this idea?
Yep, I'm comfortable with this idea. For just to ask as well on change request filter,
Mhm.
a change request passes filter. So this is depending on the organization or the project's criteria, correct?
Yes, but you see, this process is only for predictive projects. It doesn't
Ah,
apply to agile.
okay, okay, okay. Okay, understand.
Okay, then what are the different types of a change request? There are four types of change requests. One are called corrective actions. That is, something has gone wrong and you want to correct it, right? How can we correct a flawed deliverable? Flawed deliverable are the output you have produced. There is a problem with that, and we have to take necessary actions to correct that. That is called corrective action. This is about the processes. If the process is incorrect, then we will advise them to correct it. Preventive action is the damage has yet not been done, but we have uncertainty about it, and we want to give a early warning to the people who are doing this job to be more careful in these aspects of the project. That kind of a change request is a preventive action. Then we have got if some defect has been caught during the quality control, that means because that defect has been caught, it has saved us from tarnishing our reputation, but we still need to repair it, which is the cost of poor quality. So we have to pay more, but naturally we can deal. This could be a change request that the item has been produced faulty and it has to be corrected. And last but not the least is a change which modifies the baseline, scope, time, or cost. If they are affected, that is the main change. Okay, change control system, naturally, that is the change control board, which defines the change control system. That is a mechanism by which we can form, this could be forms, this could be tracking methods, processes, and other approval levels required for authorizing or rejecting a requested change. Whole procedure which I have already described to you. And there are various levels of approval. Like we said, uh, we have three levels defined. One is the main, intermediate, and small. Small was to be handled by the project manager, and medium was to be handled by the stakeholders and the project manager. And the matters most important are to be handled by the change control board. So naturally, this is just a description of what we have already talked about. Okay, manage contracts and changes and resolve problems. You see, we are doing change management or change request procedures for the work of the project. What about our procurements, our subcontractors? How are we going to maintain the change control with them? Basically, we will have the same change control mechanism which we have for the project. We will try that the same can be applied to the subcontractors. But the question is, subcontractors are not bound by your rules. They are separate organizations. So what they are bound is that they have signed a contract. So when we are signing a contract with a subcontractor, we must establish the rules of the game. If anything has to be changed in the contract, classically speaking, it must be defined. The mechanism of bringing any change to the contractual terms could be properly defined in the contract, right? So it doesn't remain a subject of the change control board. It then becomes a subject of contract change control mechanism, right? So for contracts, we will have this kind of mechanism, but otherwise the behavior is going to be similar to what we were applying by the project board. Change control, contract change control system, as I said, this is something which is not exactly equal to your overall project change control system and the change control board, but this is between us and the contractor, and we have a contract between us, which should tell us very absolutely clearly how are we going to deal with a situation where something is to be changed. It might be a component of the integrated change control or a separate organization system, this contract change control system. Specifically dedicated to change control, controlled contractual changes. It specifies the contract change and it includes the necessary documentation, dispute resolution processes, and approval levels. So they all have to be defined explicitly in the contract. Types of contract changes. There could be administrative changes in the contract, which is non-substantive, and that is just, maybe the name of the signatory has changed or something like that, which has no impact on the working of the contract. Therefore, they are called administrative changes, and they can be made mutually between the two parties, gaining consensus on that. Then there are modification to the contract. There could be substantive changes to the contract requirement or product requirement. The contract has to be renegotiated. Then we have got another thing which we call supplemental agreement. That is the additional work which we have conceived after the contract has been awarded, but we want the same contractor to do it. So that additional work is converted into a supplemental agreement and it is made part of the main contract. Main contract doesn't address it, but supplemental agreement, because it has now become part of the main contract, therefore this becomes legal as well. Then we have got constructive changes. These are changes made by the buyer through action or inaction. Meaning there is a deliverable which has to be approved by you, and you were supposed to approve it immediately after it is received, but you are on leave, and due to your inaction, you cause some damage or something, some effect on the project is there. That could be a constructive change. We can improve our process, we can catch up with that. So this is called a constructive change. And one last change is the termination of contract. When I say termination of a contract, that means the contract has not achieved their objective as yet. But we have decided that there is no more any need for this contract, and wherever we are, we should stop working, and this contract is no more valid after today. So that is the abnormal termination of our project when the project objectives have not been met, but maybe the business case has failed and it is no more valid, and therefore we decide that the contract must be abnormally terminated immediately. So these are the types of the contract changes. Legal concepts are like in contracts, we have got warranty. When we are getting something done from our contractor, so this is kind of a unwritten understanding that whatever that contractor is going to provide us would be covered under warranty. Like, if something goes wrong, we will send it back for repair and corrections. So this is covered under the warranty. Warranty could be explicit or it could be implicit. So even if the warranty is not given, for example, you go to a shop to buy a drinking water glass. Drinking water glass is supposed to hold water. But when you unpack it in your house, you see that there is no base of that glass. There is no base at all. So it can't hold water. So this is automatically covered under a warranty. You can go back to the shop and tell him, what kind of a glass have you given me? It doesn't have a base. It can't hold water. So he would be obliged to replace it with the right one. So, warranties could be given explicitly, like, when you buy a computer, they say, we will provide you warranty for 6 months or a year or 2 months or whatever. So that is also warranty. That means in warranty, they will repair anything which goes wrong with your product. Waiver. Waiver is a concept where you were the contractor and I was the buyer. So the understanding between us was that you will deliver certain items today, which you could not. Maybe you had some problems. If I am understanding with you, I am kind of trying to accommodate you, and I agree that you had a problem, although you were supposed to deliver this thing by today, but you had certain problems, and I realized that I can waive off my right to the claim. I could say that, okay, I excuse you for that. So this provision is there in a contract that the party, bereaved party, can waive off their right of claim. They can excuse the flaw. Then we have got another legal term which is called breach of contract. That is failure to meet some or all the obligations of a contract. This may result in damages which have to be paid to the injured party. It may also result in litigation or other ramifications. So breach of contract is serious, right? Small issues we could deal with a waiver, but where there is a major breach of contract, we can't just let it go. Last but not the least, we have an issue, a legal issue, which is called cease and desist letter. If your contractor is doing some illegal activities which is against the law of the land in their work premises, then, and you learn about it, this is your immediate responsibility to seal off the premises and issue a C&D letter to your contractor, which is that I have seized the premises and locked them down, and you must desist from continuing working, or legal action will be taken against you. That is called cease and desist. I hope you are comfortable with these ideas.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
Then we have got a process to educate and communicate claims. If you have a claim, like, I have done my job and you are supposed to pay me, right? So we will resolve this matter mutually. The first rule is, if I have done my job, I must be paid as per the contract. Anyways, so what are the issues which could be contested and educated? Contested changes and potential constructive changes that include lack of agreement on certain things, lack of agreement that change did occur, means both the parties have a conflict. One party says there is nothing wrong, other party says there is everything wrong. One party says we had an agreement on that, other party does not agree. So these are the things which have to be resolved immediately. Because if they are not resolved, our contract is in danger. We ultimately will have to resort to some alternate dispute resolution method. Maybe we have to go to the court. Because both parties cannot discuss anything because they don't agree what they are saying. They don't agree with each other at all. This could result in a settlement through a negotiation. Some third party may help us settle the matters with the other party, and we can sign a negotiation. But if you can't solve it, even through negotiation, the last resort is litigation. You have to go to the court. That is considered as the very last resort. Anyways, once you have done all that, which we have just discussed, you will, wherever there is any change request approved, you are allowed to make changes, the relevant changes to your baselines, to your management plans, to anything which is included in the project management plan. You are allowed to make changes, but after you have made those changes, you should again get it baselined, approved. All the three baselines must be approved by the boss. And then you can continue on with the rest of the project. Question: a stakeholder is conversing with you regarding a potential change to a specification, which best exemplifies active listening by you?
C. Asking relevant follow-up questions.
Very nice. During a meeting, you pay close attention to the emotions of yourself and others as the discussion gets heated. Which interpersonal skill are you leveraging?
Emotional intelligence.
Exactly. Okay, we are done with lesson number 5. We can have a break of around 18 minutes is okay.
Yep.
18 minutes break, and then we'll get back and we will start the last chapter, which is a very small one. We will be able to complete it.
Okay.
So see you after 18 minutes.
Okay. Thanks, Suhail.